There's something cruel about sincerity. It can be offered with a full heart and still be received as if it were owed. Sometimes the more quietly you carry others, the more invisible your wounds become. And that is where this story truly begins. Not with what people did to you, but with the moment you started letting their response decide your worth. There are people who move through life like a place of refuge for everyone else. They are the ones who step forward before anyone asks, the ones who take the heavier share without making a scene of it, the ones who soften their own needs so the people around them can remain comfortable. They learn to hold things together, to patch what others leave torn, to absorb tension before it spreads. And somewhere deep inside, they begin to believe that if they keep giving with enough grace, enough patience, enough sincerity, sooner or later, that sincerity will be recognized for what it is. But life does not always return goodness in a form that feels just. Sometimes you pour yourself into someone only to be met with a passing nod, a half-hearted thank you, or worse, the silence of someone who has already begun to treat your effort as routine. Sometimes you carry far more than anyone notices, and because you carry it so quietly, people assume you were made for that burden. No one pauses to ask what it cost you. No one wonders what parts of yourself you had to set aside just to keep everything from collapsing. That is the quiet violence of giving in the wrong place. Not simply that it goes unappreciated, but that it is gradually mistaken for obligation. As though your strength were public property, as though your patience were endless, as though your kindness were there to be used rather than honored. And this is how a person begins to disappear without anybody realizing it. People do not always break in one dramatic moment. Sometimes they wear away through 100 smaller ones, 100 times of being overlooked, 100 times of swallowing disappointment because it felt easier than explaining it, 100 times of telling themselves to try a little harder, be a little calmer, ask for a little less. Little by little, exhaustion stops feeling like a warning and starts feeling like personality. Sadness stops feeling like pain and starts feeling like weakness. Need stops feeling human and starts feeling shameful. So you begin to edit yourself. You speak less, not because you have found peace, but because you are tired of being misunderstood. You ask for less, not because you need less, but because you have grown used to your needs arriving last. You smile at the right moments, you nod at the right moments, you keep the ache folded inside so that nothing becomes inconvenient for anyone else. You start trimming away the parts of yourself that seem too much for other people. Your honesty, your hope, your sensitivity, your brightness, your ambition, your depth. You call it maturity, you call it balance, you call it knowing how the world works. But sometimes it is something far sadder than that. Sometimes it is simply the slow reshaping of a human being who has spent too long trying to become acceptable. And the deepest pain is not only that other people can be careless, it is that you begin to look at yourself through the same careless eyes. That is the real turning point, the moment when your worth drifts out of your own hands and into theirs. Many of us learn this pattern long before we can name it. We learn that praise feels like safety, approval feels like belonging, being useful feels like being loved, and from there, a quiet hunger takes root. The hunger to be seen, to be chosen, to be affirmed, to be told in one form or another that we matter. Once that hunger begins to govern the inner life, it becomes dangerously easy to believe that the answer is simply to become more patient, more giving, more agreeable, more selfless, more flawless, as though enough goodness could eventually force the world to be fair. But it cannot. Some people do not recognize kindness because they have grown too accustomed to receiving without reverence. Some feel unsettled by light, not because light is wrong, but because it reveals the shadows they work hard to ignore within themselves. Some withdraw from you not because you are lacking, but because they do not have the depth to hold what is genuine. And some will always judge you through the warped lens of their own fear, immaturity, envy, resentment, or need for control. In other words, the way people respond to you does not always tell the truth about you. Very often, it tells the truth about the limits inside them. But if you have lived too long waiting to be recognized, that truth becomes hard to trust. Every raised eyebrow feels like evidence. Every cold tone feels like a verdict. Every moment of indifference lands like a quiet confirmation that perhaps you were never enough to begin with. So you keep adjusting, keep performing, keep negotiating with yourself. You become increasingly dependent on signals from outside. A kind word lifts you. A distant glance undoes you. Your inner stability starts to swing with the moods, opinions, and permissions of people who may not even understand the weight they hold. That is why some people look perfectly composed from a distance and yet feel hollow at the center of their own lives. They still show up. They still do what is required. They still meet expectations, keep promises, answer messages, carry responsibilities, maintain appearances, yet somewhere within them, the current is weakened. Joy no longer arrives freely. Effort no longer feels meaningful. Morning begins with heaviness rather than intention. The days are survived more than lived. And all the while, because they remain functional, because they remain dependable, because they remain the person others can lean on, very few people notice that something inside them has been quietly collapsing. Perhaps that is the cruelest part. The people most accustomed to enduring often receive the least tenderness. Everyone assumes they will manage. Everyone assumes they are used to it. Everyone assumes resilience means they are not bleeding. But being used to carrying pain is not the same as being at peace. There may come a night when nothing outwardly catastrophic has happened, and yet your whole inner world feels darkened by a truth you can no longer avoid. You begin to look back on your effort and wonder what it was all for. You ask yourself how you gave so much and still ended up feeling unseen. You ask why you kept bending, only to discover that even after all that bending, it was still not enough. You ask with a kind of tired honesty that only arrives after long suffering, how much of my life have I spent trying to earn what should never have required earning? And somewhere in that darkness, a harder truth begins to glow. Perhaps the thing that wounded you most was not only the indifference of others. Perhaps it was the fact that you had quietly handed them the authority to define you. You waited for their appreciation to confirm your value. You waited for their warmth to make you feel worthy. You waited for their reciprocity to prove that your sincerity meant something. But once your worth depends on what others return, you are left standing on unstable ground forever. Human hearts are variable. People change, withdraw, project, overlook, envy, consume, misread, forget. If your sense of self rises and falls with every one of those movements, then peace will always remain beyond reach. So the way out does not begin with forcing people to understand you better. It does not begin with explaining yourself more perfectly. It does not begin with trying one final time to be so good that no one could possibly fail to value you. It begins with a painful, clarifying recognition. There are places where the more you pour yourself out, the more you lose yourself. And not everyone deserves access to the most beautiful parts of you.  'you. 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 You begin to understand that kindness is not the same as self-erasure. Patience is not the same as endless tolerance. Maturity is not the same as swallowing every hurt so that everyone else may remain comfortable. Some boundaries are not walls of bitterness, they are forms of self-respect. Some distance is not cruelty, it is discernment. Some goodbyes are not failures of love, they are refusals to keep abandoning yourself for the sake of being accepted. And then, almost imperceptibly at first, something changes. Not a miracle, not a sudden rescue, not a bright anthem that erases every bruise, more like a narrow line of light appearing at the far end of a very long corridor. It does not instantly remove the darkness. It does not pretend the road behind you was beautiful simply because you survived it. What it does is far more important. It illuminates the path you have already walked. It shows you where you kept shrinking, where you kept bending, where you mistook endurance for love, where you confused being needed with being cherished, where you gave away pieces of yourself just to remain welcome. And because of that light, you can finally see. You can see that your effort was never worthless. It revealed the depth of your heart. You can see that being overlooked was not merely rejection, but information. A quiet warning about the places that knew how to use your goodness, but not how to honor it. You can see that your shape was never wrong simply because it did not fit every mold offered to you. And perhaps most importantly, you can see that belonging can never be built by betraying your own nature. That is what light really does. It does not come to deny the dark. It comes to make the dark intelligible. It lets you trace the path of your own disappearance so that you do not vanish in the same way again. From there, your life begins to change in quieter, sturdier ways. You stop trying to be digestible for everyone. You stop over-explaining yourself to people who have already chosen a version of you that suits their convenience. You stop treating misunderstanding as proof of your failure. You stop chasing every flicker of approval as though it were oxygen, and instead you begin the far more difficult work of standing beside yourself. To stand beside yourself means learning to honor your effort without waiting for applause. It means admitting when you are tired instead of disguising fatigue as grace. It means allowing pain to be real without turning it into a private accusation. It means saying enough to the places that only know how to take. It means trusting that being rejected by what diminishes you is not a loss of worth, but a form of release. Some people will call this change. Some will say, you are no longer as easy, as available, as accommodating. Some will grow uncomfortable the moment your boundaries become visible. But that discomfort is not proof that you have become worse. It may simply mean you are no longer willing to disappear for the sake of keeping others comfortable. And one day you will look back. You will not only see the nights that felt endless, or the disappointments that hollowed you out, or the years you spent making yourself smaller for the sake of belonging. You will also see something else. You will see that through all of it, you kept going. You will see that even when your heart grew heavy, it did not become empty. You will see that even after being overlooked, you did not entirely lose your tenderness. You will see that even after wandering too long inside the judgment of others, some part of you still remembered the way home. That is the beginning of radiance, not the loud kind, not the kind that exists to impress the world, not the kind that needs witnesses in order to be real, but a steadier light, warmer and truer, rising from within, light that does not ask permission to exist, a light that does not depend on applause, a light strong enough to guide you through the places that once nearly erased you. And yes, a day will come when all your efforts, the right ones, the honest ones, the ones that helped build a life more faithful to your own soul, will shine brilliantly. But perhaps their brilliance will not lie in finally being recognized by everyone who once overlooked you. Perhaps it will lie in something quieter and greater than that, in the fact that after everything, you did not allow the world to turn you into a stranger to yourself, in the fact that you learned to protect your sincerity without burying it, in the fact that you remained gentle, but not so unguarded that anyone could leave marks on you without consequence, in the fact that you no longer run after permission to exist as you are, because at last you can look at yourself and say, this life, this heart, this self, it is enough. So if you are walking through a very dark stretch now, remember this. Your exhaustion is not evidence of weakness. Your pain is not evidence of worthlessness. And the fact that some people fail to see you does not mean there was nothing luminous there. It may only mean that the light is no longer meant to be wasted on proving yourself to the blind. It is meant first to lead you back to yourself. And if what you carry has become too heavy for too long, let someone trustworthy walk beside you. Sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is not to endure in silence, but to allow themselves to be held properly. Because in the end, the most precious victory is not how many people approved of you. It is that after all the world demanded from you, you still found a way to keep the deepest part of yourself alive. Perhaps the light we have been waiting for was never waiting at the end of the road. Perhaps it appears in the moment we stop denying ourselves and finally step out of the first darkness inside our own minds. And perhaps that is where one question remains quietly for longer than we expect. What is something within you that has wanted to begin for a very long time, yet still remains at that threshold today? Some things stop living in the dark only after they are finally named. And Mind Psypher will still be here for those returns inward to the quietest part of the self, where fear once settled and where light begins as well.